Have you ever found yourself just completely still, maybe sitting in your car after work, keys in the ignition, engine off, but you feel profoundly stuck internally?
Yes.
It's this weird knot, it's got nothing to do with traffic or what's waiting inside the house. It's stuff.
It really is that feeling of deep inertia.
Yeah.
And what we're exploring, drawing from these insights, is this idea that we often completely misdiagnose where that freeze is coming from.
Misdiagnose how?
Well, we think the problem is out there, the size of the to-do list maybe, or how complex some task is.
Right, the external stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
But the starkness, it's actually in your gaze. It's like you've been staring so hard at one tiny point, that dashboard, maybe a crack in the windshield, that your attention has just sort of fossilized there.
Fossilized, wow.
Yeah, and you forget you even have a neck. You forget you have the choice to just turn your head, look somewhere else.
Well, we're digging into today, then, is this kind of unsettling idea that this fixed gaze, this way we're looking, it's actually lying to us.
It's the ultimate misdirection. That's a great way to put it.
We think we're looking straight at the root cause of our problems, right?
Right.
But actually, we're just looking at its shadow.
Or the symptom,
Yeah.
studying the symptom maybe, instead of the actual wound.
Okay.
Exactly. So this deep dive, it's really an invitation for you listening, for us here. Let's explore where your attention is really anchored. And maybe what deep, sometimes frankly terrifying truth you might be choosing to leave in the dark, just to avoid that immediate pain.
It's a shared discovery, then. What's the real cost of refusing to turn our heads?
Precisely.
This feels really resonant, especially when I think about those problems, the ones that just seem to resist every effort.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tackle some frustration, maybe it's feeling unfulfilled at work, or those communication loops in a relationship that just go round and round.
Okay.
And I do everything right. I mean, I read the books, I try to optimize things, track metrics, I journal meticulously, I make the plans. I can talk the language of growth and healing perfectly.
You master the map.
Yes, exactly. I've got the map down cold. But the actual place, the fulfillment, it still feels hollow, distant. It's like I'm studying myself through museum glass or something. I'm interacting with the idea of change, not the raw, messy reality of it. It feels like maybe my super complex, color-coded budget spreadsheet is just my very sophisticated way of avoiding the sheer terror I feel about the future.
That's incredibly human, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so. We build these incredible, sometimes really elaborate structures, the plans, the goals, the spreadsheets.
Right.
And often they're built specifically to help us avoid something much simpler and actually much more potent.
Which is?
We build them to kind of dress up what feels like the unbearable ache of just being human, That raw vulnerability of needing things, fearing things, longing for things. The depth, it feels like it asks too much. It asks us simply to feel. And that can feel like the hardest thing in the world.
So the distraction, the spreadsheet, the plan, it's not just accidental clutter from modern life. It's actually a pretty deliberate misdirection of our awareness, designed to protect us.
It's a phenomenal act of self-preservation, really. Think about that insight we discussed from someone like Maya's experience.
Yeah.
Her stated problem was, I just want to communicate better with my partner. We argue about chores, schedules, I try being patient, but nothing changes. Her focus is all on the strategy, the how-to.
Right, communication techniques.
Exactly. But when I asked her, just simply, what do you feel in your body? Right when he walks into the room after work. She couldn't answer. She just froze.
A physical freeze, like the body knows something the mind isn't admitting yet.
Precisely. Her body spoke volumes before her mind could even start to build a story around it. Her eyes kind of flickered away. Her shoulders curled inward, just slightly, and her breath got really quick and shallow, almost hard to detect.
Wow.
That flicker, that curling. That's where her attention was actually anchored in that moment.
So she wasn't really looking at the chores or the schedule or even her partner who was right there.
No, not really. In that instant, she was desperately, silently looking at the ghost of some past hurt, maybe fear, maybe loneliness, that his presence, even just walking in the door, triggered in her. She's looking at the part of herself that's maybe terrified to say, I miss you, or I really need your attention right now. She's looking at the ghost of her own unmet need and calling it a communication problem.
Wow. Okay, if that's what's happening, then try to fix the surface thing, like reading another book on fair fighting. That's kind of pointless, isn't it?
It misses the mark entirely.
But if the answer is just awareness, like you said, how is that different from just, trying harder? How do we stop that fixing urge once we notice the tension, the freeze?
That's the core misunderstanding, I think. Real change, lasting change, it doesn't seem to come from more willpower or discipline.
Yeah.
It comes from a really radical shift in attention. It comes from awareness, that simple, sometimes quite devastating act of just noticing what is true, right here,
Right.
right now. If we realize we've been staring at the shadow, the first step, and maybe the hardest, is simply to turn our gaze, gently, towards the light, towards what's actually generating the shadow.
That sounds both incredibly simple and wildly difficult. Because noticing often means noticing something painful, right?
It often does,
Yeah.
yes. Let's try it just for a moment.
Yeah.
You listening and you too. Don't try to change a single thing. Just observe. Where are your eyes really right now? Are they scanning ahead, trying to guess where this is going? Are they maybe a bit glazed over, retreating into some safer internal thought? Are they darting away?
Okay, my jaw is clenched. I just noticed it. Wow.
Okay.
And I feel tension in my lower back. Like I'm sitting too rigidly,
Yeah.
almost
Bracing.
bracing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just notice it. Don't try to smooth it out. Don't relax it yet.
Yeah.
That clench, that tension in your back, that physical sensation is the current address of your attention.
The address.
Yeah, you're unconsciously choosing to look at that protective posture and maybe mistaking that strategy for just inevitable reality. Like that's just how your body is. So the tragedy isn't that my gaze is fixed or my jaw is clenched in protection.
Yeah.
It's that I forget I have a choice to turn the gaze. The keys are still in my hand, engine's off. I can choose to look at the sky instead of the dashboard.
That's the turning point.
Yeah.
That realization. But, and this is important, we also have to honor the avoidance itself, that initial looking away.
All right, how?
It's not stupidity, it's wisdom in a way. Your system learned, probably long ago, don't look there. That feeling, that place,
Yeah.
it's too painful. Maybe it was too dangerous back then.
Okay.
So it built this brilliant, ancient survival mechanism, a really elegant rerouting of your attention away from the heat of that wound.
It kept us functional, it kept us alive maybe,
Absolutely.
but now maybe it just keeps us small or numb.
That's often the trade-off, yes.
But let's be honest here. Isn't avoidance sometimes necessary? I mean, if the system learned it for survival, how do we tell the difference between genuine safety and, well, self-sabotage?
That is the challenge of growing up, isn't it? The strategy that literally saved you when you were 7 might imprison you when you're 40.
Right.
We start to realize it might be sabotage when we notice that constant low background hum of anxiety, or we see the same painful dynamic playing out over and over again no matter what we try.
Okay.
And if we could zoom in, like with a microscope, we'd see this avoidance happens in a microsecond.
Microsecond.
Yeah, we can actually observe the rupture in the natural flow of experience. Some call it the Gestalt cycle of experience, but we don't need the formal name. The healthy rhythm is usually something like a sensation arises. That leads to awareness, which then naturally moves into action or movement or making contact with the world.
Sensation, awareness, action, contact.
But the rupture happens right before you fully feel or right before you act. That tiny microsecond just before you look away, suddenly a thought barges in. Oh, I should check my phone, or I'll deal with this feeling later.
Ah, that thought. That's the gatekeeper.
It absolutely is.
It's the instant interruption. Stopping the feeling before it even becomes a clear need,
Yeah.
before that need can actually drive meaningful contact or action.
Precisely. And we humans, we have mastered all sorts of strategies for rerouting our attention away from the heat, away from the raw experience. We can actually name some of these, not to pathologize or label ourselves, but just to recognize them as points for self-observation.
Okay. Like what?
Well, take projection. That's seeing in other people what you refuse or maybe can't bear.
Ugh.
See in yourself.
So like accusing your partner of being distant because you're actually terrified to admit how lonely you feel.
Exactly. Or how terrifying it feels to risk real closeness. You put the problem out there onto them.
Okay, that's clear. What about, you mentioned retroflexion before, like with my jaw clenching.
Yeah.
How else does that show up?
Retroflexion is basically turning energy inward instead of directing it outward. It's the action we stop ourselves from doing. So if you desperately want to scream in frustration, but instead you hold your breath, maybe bite your tongue, and eventually develop chronic neck pain, that could be retroflexion.
Okay.
Or maybe you want to run away from a really stressful job, but instead you turn that running energy inward, maybe through self-soothing with something destructive or just feeling paralyzed. You betray your own impulse for movement.
Got it. Turning it back on yourself.
Yes. Then there's introjection. That's like swallowing beliefs whole without really chewing them or seeing if they fit you.
Like, I shouldn't need help, or good people don't get angry.
Perfect examples. You end up policing your own gaze, your own feelings, to make sure they comply with these old, often borrowed rules instead of checking in with your actual present truth.
And deflection. Is that why some people seem to always talk around their feelings, never quite landing on them? If I use, say, really abstract or technical jargon to talk about my relationship issues, is that deflecting?
Absolutely. Deflection uses things like humor or abstraction, intellectual analysis, changing the subject, anything to keep things light, to keep the focus scattered, looking everywhere except where it actually hurts.
It's like using a telescope to look at the moon when the real issue is this stone in your shoe.
Beautifully put. It ensures the emotional experience never quite lands, never makes full contact.
Okay. And the last one you mentioned.
Confluence. This is about dissolving boundaries. You kind of merge with others, look through their eyes, agree with everything, essentially becoming an echo.
Why? To avoid conflict.
Often, yes. Or just to avoid the risk of feeling what you uniquely feel, having your own distinct gaze, your own needs, can feel safer to disappear into the we. These are all just ways the system tries to keep the gaze fixed away from that raw inner truth.
Wow. The cost of all that avoidance? It sounds huge when you lay it out like that.
It can be.
Because the feeling doesn't just vanish when we look away, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It sort of fossilizes, like you said, into chronic tension or a fixed posture, or just this block, this stuckness.
It can become that low, persistent background hum in life, that feeling of slight anxiety or flatness or irritation that we stop even noticing because it's just always been there, like the furniture in the room.
In that background hum that eventually becomes the sound of feeling perpetually stuck.
That's often how it manifests. So the goal here, the shift we're invited into, it isn't about fixing the feeling. It's not about magically getting rid of the anxiety or the sadness or the anger. No. The goal is actually to change our relationship to the feeling. How? By bringing our full, soft, maybe curious attention to whatever it is we've been avoiding. The goal is making contact with what is alive in us right now.
Okay, so let's go back to the example to Maya. When she stopped looking at the ghost, the past hurts, and started looking at her own present truth, her clenched jaw, her shallow breath. What happened then? Was it like an instant fix? How do you even stay with that kind of frightening honesty?
Well, it wasn't instant fix in the sense of the feeling disappearing, but the shift in her experience was immediate.
How so?
Once her awareness really landed in her body and her present sensation, the strategy of projecting blame onto her partner just kind of crumbled. It lost its power. She allowed herself to actually feel the loneliness that was underneath the argument about chores. Not as some personal failing, but just as a deep, legitimate human truth arising in her right then.
Okay.
And so when she spoke to her partner, it wasn't from a script about better communication. It came directly from her sensation. Her words became incredibly simple, probably terrifying for her, but also profoundly alive.
What did she say?
Something like, I feel lonely when you come home and go straight to your phone.
Wow. That is radically different because it owns the internal experience, right? It's not, you never pay attention to me, which is an accusation, a projection. It's just, this is my truth right now.
Yes. And speaking that truth, allowing that feeling to be met, even just by her own awareness first, that allows for what we might call completion.
Completion, not closure.
Right. We often chase closure, don't we? Which sounds tidy and final, maybe like a neat bow on the story. But closure is often a bit of a myth, I think.
Yeah.
Completion, on the other hand, it's the messy, maybe trembling, breath-deep experience of living the full cycle. Sensation, awareness, expression, contact. Completion happens when the energy of the feeling gets to move, not necessarily when the story ends neatly.
So completion might look like just sitting with grief until its sharp edges naturally soften a bit.
Precisely. Or allowing yourself to feel righteous anger all the way through until you feel real again, instead of swallowing it and letting it turn into resentment or depression.
Okay.
Or maybe just touching an old wound with your gentle attention and saying internally, I'm here now, I see you, you're not alone with this anymore. Completion is really the moment you stop running from yourself.
I'm realizing when I suppress things or deny what I'm feeling, that's when I start to feel like I'm breaking internally, like something's fracturing. But when you actually turn toward yourself, when you meet yourself with that kind of kindness, that presence, you don't actually break. It feels more like expanding, integrating.
That quiet sometimes very tender turning inward is the most courageous action we can take.
Yeah.
It's the quiet revolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not about somehow becoming a person who never avoids, who never feels fear or clenches their jaw. That's not realistic. It's about becoming someone who notices when they're avoiding.
Notices the flicker of the clench?
Yes. And then gently, kindly, turns the gaze back. Back to the body, back to the breath, back to the here and the now.
So we spent this whole deep dive kind of parked in that driveway, haven't we? Engine off, keys in hand. And the realization is, you don't actually have to drive anywhere. You don't have to fix anything right now. You just have to be willing to turn your head.
And look, that's it, the point of no return. It isn't a fall off a cliff. It's actually a landing, a return home.
A landing.
A return to your own breath, your own arms in a way. The painful feeling, it doesn't magically vanish before you look at it. It begins to soften, to integrate, to transform. Because you look, it becomes wisdom, it becomes depth, it becomes part of your strength. So maybe I can just leave everyone listening with this invitation. It echoes that central theme, radical presence, not more strategy. You don't even have to answer it out loud. Just notice what arises.
Okay.
Where will you look now? Not where you think you should look, not where it feels safest or most familiar, but where? Where is the aliveness? Where is the heat? Where will you gently turn your gaze now?